Hello guys, I'm Tom, and today we're going to take a look at what the Omnidroids are. The Omnidroids 9000, generally known simply as Omnidroids, or even feared under the nickname of relentless killing machines, managed to carve their name into the collective memory of animated film fans. And they did so in grand fashion, because in the universe of The Incredibles they were not just ordinary secondary villains, but stood out as some of the most terrifying, imposing, and spectacular enemies ever to appear on the big screen. At first glance, they seemed like ordinary robots, giant and threatening, but in reality, they were much more than that. They were true living weapons, designed without a trace of compassion, created with a single purpose: to carry out the dangerous and twisted vision of Syndrome, the dark genius behind the so-called Operation Kronos. What made these metallic titans so fearsome wasn't just their brute strength, nor their nearly indestructible armor, but something far more chilling: their artificial intelligence. These mechanical beings could observe, analyze, and adapt in the middle of combat, like predators evolving within seconds. Every move made by a hero became valuable information for the Omnidroid, and every mistake was recorded so it would never be repeated. This turned any battle into an impossible scenario, a nightmare in which the machine always had the advantage. For all these reasons, in this video, we're going to dive into their story from beginning to end. We'll explore their dark origins and the mastermind who conceived them, go through each one of their versions and how they were perfected over time, analyze their strengths and weaknesses, and understand how these metallic colossi became key pieces in Syndrome's master plan. The creation of the Omnidroids was born directly from the twisted dream of their creator. Syndrome, formerly known as Buddy Pine, was not just a boy obsessed with superheroes. His frustration drove him to become a brilliant inventor, amassing a real fortune by selling military technology and cutting-edge weapons to governments and armies around the world. With those virtually unlimited resources, he decided to take the next step toward his true ambition: to become humanity's new idol. But in order to shine as a hero, he first had to create a threat worthy of being defeated, and thus, the infamous Project Kronos was born. The plan was as Machiavellian as it was ingenious: manufacture a series of unstoppable machines, unleash them against unsuspecting superheroes, and in every battle, collect data that would allow the next model to be improved. Each defeat of a hero wasn't just a simple victory for the machine, but another step in the evolution of a metallic beast that became deadlier with every version. The cycle repeated itself again and again. Robot created, hero hunted, data collected, robot upgraded, and with each step, the machine moved closer to absolute perfection. But Syndrome's cruelty didn't stop there. His manipulation was even more sinister. He contacted retired superheroes, making them believe these were secret government missions, operations that required their bravery and experience. Deceived, the heroes accepted and went into battle, convinced they were fighting for the greater good, when in reality, they were stepping right into the wolf's mouth. Most of them didn't survive. Their deaths were not honorable battles against a world-threatening enemy, but rather simple experiments in a laboratory of blood and metal. Every confrontation was, in truth, a rehearsal. Every fall, an opportunity to learn. And all of it was leading toward a greater goal: to create the perfect enemy, one capable of challenging the greatest hero of all, the one who symbolized the golden age of superheroes, Mr. Incredible. For Syndrome, defeating him was not just a matter of personal revenge, but the key piece of his plan. Once the strongest hero was beaten, Syndrome could then appear before the world as the new savior, the man who had destroyed the impossible threat, earning the eternal admiration of humanity. With this, we have already unraveled the origins and the sinister history surrounding the Omnidroids. But the truly fascinating part begins now. because understanding their evolution model by model is like observing the progression of a predator that adapts, mutates, and perfects its skills until it becomes an almost invincible beast. Syndrome didn't just build a robot. He designed a chain of mechanical monsters, each more dangerous than the last, which together form the backbone of his obsessive Project Kronos. The first of all these creations was the Omnidroid 9000X1, the starting point, the most primitive link in this line of steel colossi. At first glance, this prototype seemed crude and even rudimentary compared to the models that would come later. Its design was marked by a central body with a large single eye, a sort of mechanical sentinel tasked with analyzing its surroundings. From its sides emerged two enormous arms ending in metallic pincers, capable of easily tearing apart any object or enemy in its path. As a means of locomotion, the X1 had no legs or feet. It moved using a system of small wheels, making it less agile but still functional. What is surprising is that despite this limited appearance, the machine proved lethal. It was responsible for the fall of heroes such as Universal Man, Universal, and Psy-Wavers, demonstrating that even in its most basic version, Syndrome's idea was already loaded with enormous destructive potential. The X1 seemed unstoppable, until the superhero Macro first appeared, who managed to defeat it and put an end to its brief but bloody reign. The second model, known as the X2, was the true beginning of the evolutionary escalation. Syndrome learned from the mistakes of the X1 and took a key step, replacing the wheels with two slender but sturdy metallic legs, which gave it greater agility and mobility in combat. Now the machine could not only move quickly, but also attack from unpredictable angles. Its body was more streamlined and solid, and its appearance already showed a higher degree of sophistication. The X2 proved to be an implacable executioner, responsible for the deaths of heroes such as Macro Bears, Raphael Enkia, and Blaze Tone. However, as had happened with its predecessor, a hero stepped in to stop it. Down Bears, who managed to destroy it in an epic battle that became another chapter in the bloody history of the Omnidroids. The third generation, the X3, marked an even more radical change. For the first time, Syndrome experimented with the concept of multiple limbs. This version had 3 mechanical legs, giving it the appearance of an insectoid creature and a higher level of speed and dynamism. Curiously, to this day there is no official design of the X3. In archives and records, the illustration of the initial model is often repeated, creating an aura of mystery around its true appearance. However, what we do know for certain is that the X3 fulfilled its purpose. It succeeded in eliminating Down Bears himself, although it ultimately met its end when facing the hero Hypershark, who managed to destroy it. The fourth version, called the X4, is where we begin to see a design that comes closer to what we would eventually recognize in the film. This model had 4 lower limbs that could function as both arms and legs, giving it terrifying versatility. Its body took on a more oval shape, almost like a metallic egg, which was not accidental. It was the first clear sign that Syndrome was refining the spherical concept that would characterize later models. The X4 was as dangerous as its predecessors, eliminating heroes such as High Pressure and the Winnipeg 3 group. There are even theories that it also took the life of Brad Sherman, although this information is not fully confirmed. Still, the X4 also found its nemesis. It was defeated by the superhero Keys, known as Telescopic Wine, in a battle that exposed both its strengths and weaknesses. Then came the X5, and with it, a leap in complexity. At first glance, it might have seemed a slight evolution of the X4, as it also had 4 mechanical arms ending in pincers. However, the reconfiguration of these limbs, together with a much more spherical and refined central body, marked a new level of design. The X5 was more robust, balanced, and deadly in combat. Among its victims were Telescopio and the heroine Stand Side, demonstrating that this model was one step away from becoming a practically perfect extermination machine. However, its destructive run was also stopped, this time by the powerful Gamma Jack, who managed to neutralize it. Finally, we reached the X6 version, the true bridge to the modern Omnidroids we saw in action in The Incredibles. This model already featured a fully spherical design, much more aerodynamic and refined, leaving behind the elongated or oval shapes of its predecessors. Its limbs were more versatile and resistant, and its iconic pincers were redesigned to include a third articulated finger, increasing its precision when capturing and subduing enemies. In addition, the X6's central eye received a crucial improvement. It could rise from the top of its body, rotate, and turn with ease, giving it a wider and more detailed field of vision. This simple but powerful innovation made it an even more relentless hunter, always aware of its surroundings and difficult to surprise. The previous model had already proven itself to be a relentless machine, capable of eliminating Gamma Jack and, possibly, other heroes whose fates remained shrouded in mystery. To this day, doubts persist about whether anyone truly managed to destroy it definitively, or if its remains still lie hidden as a reminder of Syndrome's cruelty. However, for the villain, that victory was merely an intermediate step. Syndrome was never satisfied with partial achievements. His obsessive madness always drove him to go further, perfecting every detail until reaching the ultimate machine. It was then that he decided to take an evolutionary leap that would change the course of his creation forever, designing a model created especially to face the hero he hated most, Mr. Incredible. From that ambition was born the 7th generation, the feared Omnidroid 9000X7. This model represented a significant advancement over its predecessors. Its body was supported by 5 limbs, giving it unprecedented stability, allowing it to maintain balance over any terrain, even in the midst of chaotic battles. But the most innovative feature of this design lay in its visual sensors. The X7 could move its eyes and vision mechanisms in multiple directions, up and down, greatly expanding its field of view. No enemy could approach without being detected. As if that weren't enough, this steel beast had the ability to retract its arms and transform into a rolling sphere, moving with brutal speed and turning into a living battering ram. It was a terrifying machine, both in design and execution. And yet, for Syndrome, the X7 was still insufficient. Driven by his insatiable need for perfection, he conceived the X8, a far deadlier version. This colossus was armed with 5 segmented biometric arms, ending in 4-fingered pincers that could transform into sharp circular saws, capable of cutting steel as if it were paper. Its armor was extraordinarily resistant, designed to withstand even extreme environments such as volcanic lava, making it practically indestructible. In addition, its refined artificial intelligence allowed it to anticipate attack patterns, quickly analyze strategies, and adapt to any combat situation. The X8 was, in every sense, the ultimate extermination machine, or so it seemed. Its defeat did not come through brute force, but through the cunning of Mr. Incredible, who managed to infiltrate its interior and manipulate it until it self-destructed, forcing it to attack itself. A testament to the fact that even the most terrifying monsters could be defeated with ingenuity. But the story did not end there. Far from stopping, Syndrome took his experiments to an even more chilling level by designing the X9. This version represented a colossal leap in terms of strategy and mobility. The X9 did not simply react to an enemy's movements, it predicted them. It was like facing a predator that already knew your next move, an enemy capable of reading and anticipating every reaction. In theory, it was one of the most fearsome opponents ever conceived. a rival designed specifically to surpass even the legendary Mr. Incredible. Curiously, the X9 was never deployed to its full potential. Syndrome deliberately held it back to reveal his identity and humiliate Mr. Incredible, showing him that he had been fighting in vain against machines that only served his plan. Still, the X9 remained ready for the climactic moment of Operation Kronos, a monster waiting for the right instant to be unleashed. And then Syndrome reached the pinnacle of his twisted ambition. The 10th version, the legendary Omnidroid 9000X10. This was his ultimate masterpiece, the culmination of years of perfection. The X10 was not only larger, stronger, and more durable than any previous model, but also far more intelligent and deadly. It was a colossus capable of facing multiple superheroes at once and emerging victorious. Its presence alone was imposing. The X10 incorporated a 6th additional arm, integrated laser cannons and rockets in its legs, allowing it to fly quickly and maneuver in the air with surprising agility for its enormous size. It was, in essence, a weapon of mass destruction. Its physical strength bordered on the unimaginable. It could lift colossal structures, throw multi-ton objects as if they were mere stones, and smash solid concrete surfaces with barely any effort. Even Violet's force fields were vulnerable to its crushing power. Every step it took left deep craters in the ground, as if the Earth itself suffered from its advance. In ranged combat, the X-10 was equally devastating. Its laser cannons could pulverize obstacles, destroy vehicles, and annihilate enemies with surgical precision. Its armor was so resistant that neither bullets, missiles, nor explosions could leave a visible mark. Even the fiercest blows from Mr. Incredible seemed insignificant against its shell. And if all else failed, it could retract its limbs and transform into a rolling sphere, reaching speeds impossible for a robot of its size and crushing everything in its path. But the most terrifying thing about the X-10 was not its strength or its weapons, but its mind. Its artificial intelligence was so advanced that it could analyze any strategy, learn in seconds, and respond with ever more lethal attacks. It never retreated. On the contrary, it became more aggressive the greater the threat. It reached such a high level of awareness that, according to Brad Webb himself, the X-10 began questioning why it should obey Syndrome. And in a terrifying twist, when the machine concluded it no longer needed him, it destroyed the remote control that governed it and freed itself, transforming into an autonomous, independent, practically invincible creature. Still, no creation is perfect. The Omnidroids had weaknesses, though very few and difficult to exploit. Their armor could be damaged by precise attacks. Their cannons could be destroyed with sufficient force. Even Syndrome's remote control, while it existed, was always a vulnerable point. Their pincers, as terrifying as they were, could be broken with enough power. And most curiously of all, despite their extraordinary intelligence, the robots could be tricked with cunning, as was proven in the final battle against the X-10. However, these minor cracks do not diminish the place the Omnidroids earned in history. They are remembered as formidable enemies, practically impossible to defeat, and as Syndrome's darkest and most disturbing legacy. Today, they are considered not only one of the deadliest creations in the Incredibles universe, but also one of the most terrifying and unforgettable robotic villains in the entire history of animated cinema.